Hi, my name is Tony Law from Your First Four Houses. Last week I produced a video that got me a little bit of flack. In this video I talked about the idea of taking empty commercial shops and maybe changing them into really great residential units, but in particular where they were quite small, relatively speaking. And I talked about how they should be bigger than 37 square meters. Now the flack that I got, to be really honest with you, was the idea that anybody could live in such a tiny space. But I'm actually going to just argue that case for a moment. You see, I personally believe that with really excellent interior design, creative design, you can create a fantastic home, even though it may be a slightly smaller space. Now, I have never recommended another YouTube channel before. However, I would love you to check out Living Big in a Tiny House. This is going to give you a whole world of ideas on just how awesome you can make a smaller space. Now, if I'm being really honest with you, I have never been one of those people that kind of buys into the I've got to have a really big expensive car, a really big house and the associated mortgage that goes hand in hand with that. I'm just not that kind of person, to be perfectly honest with you. Instead, I think we should all be living in perhaps slightly smaller, slightly more compact housing, but essentially utilising incredible interior design. Smaller but well-designed units means more affordable housing, so that frankly everybody can have their own home. But as a property investor, it also means more profit for investors. And I think that's perfectly okay. If you're providing more quality accommodation, even though it may be smaller units, if the investor or the developer gets a reasonable return from that, I think that's a really good thing. Now, if this idea of creating smaller, beautifully designed properties helps you, let me make a few quick tips that may well help you, because I don't personally think you need to actually spend a lot of money on interior design courses. So my first tip is go and walk around a local IKEA. If you do that, you will find that they have these kind of example flats and they give you the square meterage on the outside of the block, and go inside and they're often really small spaces, but you'll get some incredible ideas. Google tiny house ideas. Now when I did this, I got 593 million results. If you start to wade through some of those, you're going to come up with some fantastic ideas. Search Amazon for tiny homes and go and get yourself a couple of books. Maybe make them leaning towards an architectural designer book, because frankly that's what architects do. They can create the most amazing of smaller homes. Go and buy a couple of books. Always keep in mind that rooms should be multi-use. Getting the right lighting and colours in a smaller space is absolutely essential, and I have done a course on that. I know how big a difference it can actually make. I would strongly suggest that if possible, you should be incorporating some home working space moving forwards. This is just a bit of a thing that I've got at the moment. I honestly think that working from home, even in smaller spaces, is the way forwards, moving into the future. Maybe from next year onwards, who knows. And lastly, put yourself together a Pinterest board of all your different design ideas. And the last point that I want to actually make on this is always be aware, though, that your property should always be larger than 30 square meters, in my personal opinion, because generally speaking, less than 30 square meters, it's probably going to be unmortgageable, although please check with an independent mortgage broker just to confirm that, depending on when you're watching this video. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that we immediately all start living in tiny houses, not at all. But please don't automatically think that you must have a large square meterage to create a workable home, because honestly, you really don't.